Good morning and welcome to Greece. My name's Andrew and I live here. Now, one of the questions I frequently get asked by people is, when is the best time to visit Greece? And my answer is very simple. It depends on what you wish to do here. So I've split this video into 6 activities which I know are popular with tourists, and I'm going to tell you when is the best time to come here and visit for each of those activities. And most importantly also, why? Because Greece is not just about the summer. Greece is great to visit all year round, depending on what you want to do. And you can see today the weather's not so great. We have 300 days of sunshine in Greece, but not every day is great. So let me just start very quickly by talking about the weather. So many people coming to Greece will be coming for the weather. And the reality is that between about mid-May and the end of September, you are pretty guaranteed good weather. So if you come in mid-May, think temperatures probably mid-20s, rising in June to perhaps 30, 32, 33, July, late 30s, and then August, 40, 45, dropping off again in September, maybe down into the mid-30s or low 30s. But what about the rest of the year? Well, the rest of the year is still pretty good. And yes, you take a risk from, let's say, October through to the end of March, but you'll be unlucky if a lot of the days aren't sunny. And the lowest temperatures you generally get here are sort of late 10s to 15 degrees. February is probably the month you want to avoid. If you're going to avoid one month in Greece, I would suggest February, because you can see a bit of snow in February, even in Athens, and the temperatures and the weather can be a bit all over the place. So let's start with the islands. The chances are you're coming to Greece to visit the islands, and the season for the islands really begins mid-May. That's when things start to open and will run through until mid to end October. So any time during that period, it's worth visiting the islands. The peak time is July and August. And if you want the real island experience, I would actually say go in July and August. It's going to be busy, it's going to be hot, but you're going to get that vibrancy, that life that is so famous in Greece, and in particular in the Greek islands. But if you prefer it a little bit quieter and perhaps a little bit cooler, then go for the periods outside that, the shoulders if you like. So May and June, or September and October. September and October particularly, especially good, because the kids are back at school, the weather's still good, everything's still open, you still get that experience, but without the hustle and bustle and the busyness, and indeed some of the cost, because in July and August, supply and demand, they're not quite in balance. You're going to pay a premium for the hotels, you're going to pay a premium for the restaurants, but outside that period, it's much better value. And that said, if you want to go in the winter, the islands are still great in the winter. I would personally avoid the very small islands in the winter, but places like Crete, Rhodes, Corfu, yes, they'll be quiet. Yes, lots will be shut, but there's a big enough population for them still to have stuff going on. So even in the winter, Christmas time especially, it might just be worth visiting. So when should you visit Athens? Because let's face it, you come to Greece, most people are going to want to visit Athens. Well, to be honest, Athens is open all year round and is fantastic at any time of year. The great thing about Athens is that everything is open. The restaurants, the sites, etc. So it actually doesn't really matter when you come. But my preference, and I have to be honest, would be probably October through to early May. And there are 2 specific reasons for that. The first is that in June, July, August, September, Athens has an extended season. It gets really busy. Occupancy in hotels is a nightmare, prices go through the roof, and you are going to be fighting the crowds. You're going to have to pre-book your tickets for the Acropolis. You're going to find the restaurants are full, and it's not necessarily a pleasant experience. It's a good experience, but it's not the optimum experience. So I would recommend that you come in the off-season period. As I said, everything's still open. The great thing is between November and the end of March, everything site-wise, the Acropolis, Hadrian's Library, etc., they're all half price. So you save a bit of money. And the occupancy on the hotels, the occupancy in the restaurants is greatly reduced. So you have a fighting chance of actually enjoying yourself. Now, the other big challenge in the peak months is the heat, and you should not underestimate this. There is a reason why the Greek people who live in Athens leave Athens in July and August. Athens is empty in July and August, with the exception of the centre of Athens and the tourists, and there's a reason for that. It's the heat, because it gets to 40, 45 degrees in Athens. It's stifling. It will overwhelm you. You should not underestimate it. You're going around, you're walking around the sites, you will struggle anytime outside early morning or late afternoon. It's a nightmare, and I've seen many tourists give up as a result of this. So please don't underestimate the heat. So, Athens, any time of year, but best time of year, October through to end of April. So let's say you want to get out of Athens and explore some of Greece's amazing history and ancient sites. And let's face it, Greece has more than its fair share. Well, my advice is very similar to Athens, to be honest. You can go any time of year. They are open pretty well all year round. But should you have the opportunity to come off season, there are two enormous benefits. Firstly, some of the really popular sites get very, very busy in the summer, and it spoils the experience. You don't get to explore and understand the history of these places when it's packed. Whereas off season, you'll have it to yourself. The second opportunity, obviously, is the heat. And again, I come back to this. If you're exploring an ancient site in the height of summer, you are going to suffer. You'll need hats, you'll need water, and you will not be able to spend long out in the sun because it will absolutely exhaust you. And I see tour parties going around. They'll leave Athens at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. They'll do 8 hours on the road. They'll do 2 or 3 sites. They'll have lunch somewhere. They'll get back 8 o'clock at night. People are absolutely exhausted, and it ruins the whole experience for them for the rest of the holiday. So be very careful of that in the summer. But if you come off season, not only, as I said, in Athens, are the sites half price between the 1st of November and the 31st of March, but you get the places to yourself. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a car and be driving around, you may want to go in the summer, because if you're going, let's say, down to the Peloponnese or somewhere, the sites are only half the story. You want to visit the beaches, you want to visit the seaside towns, and yes, you can do that off season, but most things will be closed. So if you're interested in exploring the Peloponnese and combining that with the sites, then I would suggest you do it in May, June, July, August, September, when these seaside towns will be open. You can swim, you can enjoy the beaches. But if you're purely coming for the sites, I would really advise strongly doing it off season. Now, I am a great fan of RVs or camper vans like the one behind me. We see them all over the Peloponnese, but there is definitely a season to it. We see an uptick, shall I say, from about mid-March through to probably the end of May, and then from late September through to late November. Between those periods, you get virtually none, and I think it's purely about the weather and probably the number of people as well. You don't want to be here in the heat of summer. One of those heat of summer, it's going to be like an oven. And then obviously in the winter, it's not cold here, but it's too cold for an RV. They're insulated, but they're not that well insulated. So you have these peak periods, as I said, between about mid-March and end of May, and then from end of September through to about end November, when we see a lot of RVs here. And I completely get it. Touring around the Peloponnese, touring around Greece, it's ideal RV country, and it must be heaven. I love RVs. I've never actually had the opportunity to holiday in one. It's one of my ambitions. I need to hire one, and I'm a bit of a fan of van life sites on YouTube at the moment. If you ask me what I watch at the moment, I watch a lot of build your own van. But RVs, great way to see the Peloponnese, but definitely have their own season. If, like me, you like hiking and exploring, or mountain biking and cycling, then Greece is absolutely perfect as a destination for this, because you have fantastic coastline, you have great roads, to be honest, with scenic views, and you have the mountains. So there is something for absolutely everyone here. But again, it very much has a season. I speak from experience here. For me, I go hiking, exploring March, April, early May. I then restart late September, October, November. I avoid the winter months, January and February, because it's just too unpredictable and too cold, and the summer months just too hot. And if you're cycling, or if you're exploring, or if you're mountain biking, the roads get too busy. Whereas outside the peak period, those shoulders, if you like, as I said, either side of the peak period, you have a perfect country and perfect weather to explore. Now, it may look dreary and dull today, but it's 21 degrees. It's absolutely perfect for getting out and seeing parts of Greece that as a tourist you would not find unless you're willing to hike or cycle or just explore in general. I highly recommend it. I mentioned earlier that February is probably my least recommended month for visiting Greece, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't come in February. And there's something surprising that you can actually do here in February, and that is skiing. Yes, snow skiing. Now, you can see the mountains behind me. Greece is 80% mountains. Parnon, which is not far from here, 6 kilometers from here, is 2 kilometers high. And if you go to Delphi, or near Delphi, Arahava, or if you go to Demitsana in the Peloponnese, or if you go to Parnon, you can ski, and there are ski resorts up there. And particularly in February, you will find that there is a ski season. It may shock you. We're not in the Alps. I'm not going to tell you that it's the same quality as Switzerland, but most years there is a half decent ski season. It's short, it's intense, but you can go skiing in Greece. Now, finally, we have 6 major holidays which you should be aware of because they may affect what is open and what you can do on these particular days or festival periods. So obviously we have Christmas and we have Easter. We then have 4 other holidays which are pretty major here. January the 6th, March the 25th, May the 1st, Labour Day, and October the 28th. And all of those have particular significance here in Greece. Most of the time around that period, the restaurants will be very busy, pre-book, and on the days in particular, the shops themselves will be shut. March the 25th, for example, all the schools parade in a sort of military parade, but it's an opportunity for you actually to participate in some of the Greek activities and culture, which is so important here to the Greeks. So, thank you for watching. I hope this has given you a feel for what you can do in Greece and when it is best to come, should you wish to visit. Whatever you choose to do, whenever you wish to come, you will have a great time because it's a fantastic country. I know most of you will come during the peak period. It scales up to 15th of August, which is St. Mary's Day, and then gradually tapers off down into September. You've got the shoulders either side, they're brilliant. And it's just a fabulous country to visit. So thank you for watching. I have a lot of videos on Greece. If you're interested in finding out more about particular locations, guides to Athens, etc., then have a look through my channel. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you and doing more for you soon. Thank you.